Let's bring in my guest, Jeanne Branthover, Managing Director for Boyden Global Executive Search. Jeanne has been named one of the world's most influential headhunters by Bloomberg Businessweek magazine. Also with us, we have John Canally. He is an investment strategist and economist at LPL Financial Corporation. Good to have you both with us. Jeanne, let's talk about some of the numbers first. The revisions. The revisions indicate that in previous months, in September, in August, we added more jobs than we previously believed. Does this bode well for the future?
I believe it does. First of all, we all thought that the numbers were wrong, and that because we've been busy. And if we're busy, that's definitely a sign that there's hiring going on, because retained search is not retained if there's not hiring going on. So number one, we're not surprised. I also think it's a very good sign for the future. We see our clients are bringing us in right now for strategy for next year, and they are hiring, and they are planning to hire. And so the end of the year, we're a little bit nervous right now as far as more firings are going to take place. But strategically, the clients are definitely getting a little bit optimistic. With the negatives are the market is crazy. The positive is everyone feels like we are starting to come out of this with these good numbers. So there is planning, there is budgeting for hiring, and 2012 should be a year that we see things getting better.
Indeed, I'm going to ask you about some of the specifics about where they're hiring. John, come in on the topic of the jobs report. Is it possible that the flat jobs market really is a good indication because it's not getting worse and we can get rid of all these ideas of another recession in the United States?
You know, Pam, I do think that this particular report kind of puts to rest for now the idea that we're in a recession. I mean, we heard so many people over June, July, August, September tell us that we're in a recession now. These data pretty much wipe that off the table. So no, we're not in a recession now. And I think we're creating enough jobs to keep the unemployment rate about where it is now, but it's still not enough to push the unemployment rate much lower. So I do think that the consumer sentiment surveys are still going to reflect that the unemployment rate remains high, and you really need the economy growing a little bit faster than it is now to push that much lower. But, you know, certainly good news for those people who were fearing that we're headed back to another recession. That doesn't look very likely here in the next couple of months, at least.
Jeanne Branthover, talk about specific industry groups, because one of the areas that has been most affected by layoffs has been state and local governments. That's where we've seen a lot of the jobs disappear.
Right.
What areas do you see that are hiring? Because I know that you cover specifically financial services, and that also has been a volatile situation.
Well, my office, my New York office of Boyden, we cover a lot more than financial services. So my specialty is financial services, but my people do a lot more than that.
So you get the inputs from a lot of industry groups.
In all industries, right. So, and we just came back from our Boyden meeting down in Miami, so I have sort of all input. First of all, there is hiring in various sectors. So financial services is the one that has gone down, but we are still seeing globally hiring still going on. Particularly, to answer your question, wealth management is going crazy. Think about it. The markets are going crazy, so therefore you need people to be talking to clients and customers about their money. And so that is an area that's still hiring, continues to hire, was doing well.
And it's a high-margin business, right? I mean, it's a high-margin business that doesn't necessarily require the firm's capital in order to do business.
Exactly. So it's fueled by, you know, customers. So that's one area. The other hot area in financial services is technology within financial services, which we've talked about before. And what that really means is every financial service company knows they have to be competitive. How do they be competitive? By being very state-of-the-art technically. So therefore they continue to spend money there, and then they have to hire the people who are the specialists who know everything to keep these products going. So that's where we're seeing real continuous of growth within financial services. But outside of financial services, for the first time in a long time, we're seeing consumer products, we're seeing industrial, we're seeing areas of retail actually hiring. So one of the huge areas is industrial, oil and gas. All of that is hiring a lot. So we see a real uptick in searches, in retained searches in all industries.
John, let's focus on one of those specific industry groups. I want to ask your thoughts about the automobile industry. You're seeing people continue to buy new automobiles, and indeed automobile companies, they are hiring in manufacturing facilities in the United States. Can we expect that to continue?
You know, I think we can. You know, auto production in the United States last week was the strongest it's been in 3.5 years. Most people probably don't know that because they hear a lot of bad news all the time. but indeed we are producing autos at the fastest rate in 3.5 years. That requires people to make those cars. We had those supply chain issues in Japan. Those have now faded away. So there's going to be some hiring there. There's going to be a more hiring this year for the holidays than there has in the past. And I do think at the margin, companies who are sort of evenly split between hiring overseas and hiring here are now under a little bit of pressure to make that hire here in the U.S. rather than doing it overseas. So you're actually seeing some manufacturing jobs come back to this country. We haven't seen that happen in a while. So I think we are, the stage is set for a decent amount of job growth next year. Maybe you get to 150 or 200,000 private sector jobs per month. That's better, but it's still not much. We still need to get back all those 8.8 million jobs that we lost during the Great Recession. We're only a little more than a quarter of the way back.
Well, John makes a good point, Jeanne, because there were 8.8 million jobs lost during the recession. We've gained back about 2.8 million. I mean, you talk about the consumer side of the business. I want to talk about retail because we're getting into the holiday shopping season. The retail chain store numbers came out this week, yesterday, and they showed that some companies were doing rather well. Kohl's, for example, but they did not meet. A lot of the companies did not meet the analysts' expectations. Is that what we're having to face, is that our expectations are too high and we're just going to have to live with a sluggish growth economy?
I think what our clients are starting to realize is it's going to grow, but it's not growing at the expectations that the analysts had. But on the other hand, it is growing. So what we're seeing, and one of the big things in our meeting was talking about retail, we are seeing all the retail chains, stores, really doing emphasis for this holiday season, believing that it is going to be better, and they've set up a strategy of hiring for the season that is more aggressive than it's been in other years. So we are seeing across the board in retail much more of an optimistic attitude, but more importantly, hiring and really talking strategically hiring, not just for Christmas and for the holidays, but also for 2012.
John, Federal Reserve Chief Ben Bernanke at his press conference this week showed that there were still some concerns about growth in the economy, that the employment picture was not picking up. People are not getting hired at a rate conducive to better economic growth. Is there anything that the government should be doing that it isn't?
Well, what the Fed chairman said on Wednesday and has been saying now for months is that in some cases, in some areas of the economy, in some sectors of the economy, there is a skills mismatch. So there are job openings. I think there's something like 4 or 5 million open jobs out there. Some of those job openings can't be filled because the people who are looking for work don't have those skills. So that gets back to the fact that maybe you need a little more education out there. Maybe you just need some job training. Now, some of it, of course, is that there's just not a lot of demand out there, but there is a skills mismatch, and I'm not sure that any government body can help to resolve that. I just think it's up to the individual to go out there and maybe retrain for that job. Sure, the government can help there. So I do think we need to sort of retrain some of those workers in the jobs that aren't going to come back. So there's a lot of construction jobs aren't going to come back. A lot of jobs in the financial services probably aren't going to go back. They need to transition over into a different type of work, and then we can start to fill those 4 or 5 million open jobs that we have.
Jeanne Branthover, politics and jobs. John was saying earlier that many jobs are coming back to the United States. What have you found, and if indeed that's happening, what are some of the reasons why companies are hiring in the U.S. as opposed to building out their businesses in emerging markets or taking advantage of it?
I agree exactly with what John was saying, because in our meeting down in Miami, I was very surprised that at the CEO level, all the people around the world have heard that their clients are bringing back jobs to the United States, which I had not really heard that much in financial services. But across the board, when they outsourced, thinking they were cutting this huge cost, sending things to be done overseas, well, they have found that it's very difficult to get it back here in the amount of time with everything with the borders and with, importing, exporting. It's not what it used to be. So it's costing more money. The quality is not as controlled as they thought it was going to be. And they're really realizing this is not saving us money. And we lost jobs for people in the U.S. So they have set a strategy to slowly literally bring back these jobs, re-employ people or employ people, and bring it back to the United States. So we felt that was excellent news for the U.S. economy, but also for the people that we talk to that are out of jobs in certain industries that were outsourced. So I think it's a really good thing and is definitely happening.
John, come in on the topic of the government's role right now, because if we get more positive job reports, do you think that all of the conversation about uncertainty in business, and we've often heard people talk about regulations and business as an impediment to jobs, think that's all going to go away if the unemployment rate drops below 9%?
Well, there is an incredible amount of uncertainty. If you look at the Federal Reserve's Beige Book, I went through and counted the number of times the word uncertainty appears. In the September Beige Book, it appeared 33 times. In the November Beige Book, it appeared 26 times. The pre-recession average was like 6 or 7 times. So there's an awful lot of uncertainty. What is that surrounding? It is surrounding, right now, it's sort of the holiday season. How's the holiday season going to be? But a lot of it is regulation. A lot of it is just the economy itself. Is the economy going to grow? A lot of it's also in Europe. So I think getting the unemployment rate down will help the uncertainty, but in a strange sense, the uncertainty is preventing some hiring. So it almost feeds on itself. I think resolving Europe would help. Getting Congress to agree to make some deficit cuts, I think that would help the uncertainty. And of course, on the regulatory side, which is something the president can do on his own, he can decide tomorrow to, suspend all the regulations. I think that would help as well. So there are some things there. So those 3 things, I think, are the 3 keys to creating jobs. But just getting the economy growing a little faster, I think, would be a big help.
I want to thank you both very much. John Canally joining us from LPL Financial, and of course, Jeanne Branthover joining us from Boyden Global Executive Search.